to another episode of Erik Wait Whiskey Studies, and in this video I'm going to do a review of the Highland Park Cask Strength Single Malt Scotch Whisky. But before I get into this, here are my notes. The Highland Park Cask Strength Single Malt Scotch Whisky was aged in sherry seasoned American oak casks of different ages. It is unchill filtered, has natural color, it's bottled at 63.3% alcohol by volume, and sells for about $85 in my neighborhood. So I'm doing things a little bit differently than I do them in a normal review. I don't usually start off a review by adding ice to a whiskey, but this is a huge, intense whiskey. This is not a bottle of whiskey. This is a bottle and a half of whiskey. There's no way in the world, personally, that I can drink this neat. So on the neck pour, the effect was like going to see the dentist, and before you have a root canal, and the dentist, you know, they take the little needles and they go into your gums and they numb you all up before going to work on you. That's what a neck pour, that's what drinking this neat is like. The alcohol is so intense. You get this strong tingling, burning sensation on the inner part of your inner lip and your gums. So, I know so far this review doesn't sound like it's going very well, but hang in there, hang in there, hang in there. So it needs some water. So after trying it neat and experiencing the numbing effect of this Scotch whiskey, I then tried some water. 1 tablespoon, not teaspoon. Nope, not enough. Still getting that numbing effect. 2, 3, 4. Okay, and then when it seemed like the stinging effect was brought under control and tamed, I let the water sit in the glass for about 4 or 5 hours to become really well integrated. And then it seemed, I would say, it became approachable. It became an approachable whiskey. But still a very, very, very intense whiskey. A real mouth grabber. Now, I never do, or generally don't do, neck pour reviews. I generally let a bottle get below the shoulders and get about, at least a third of the way through, down and get into where the label is at. So when I approach the camera to do my review, it's not my first time coming to it, right? The notes that I provide are notes that I've already come up with before even turning the camera on and come before you to do the video, right? So it's not my first time, so I already know what it smells and tastes like before I do the review. Given that, I know that I cannot do a neat whiskey review of this because I would not be able to recommend it just based on what it's like neat. I have to give a review based on the various ways in which I've tried it. Well, with a lot of water added to it and on ice. It is now quite chilled. The ice has now been melting. I know the glass is chilled up. And everyone's going to say, oh, you can't taste it. No, you add the ice, it numbs it, it reduces the flavor too much, adding ice to it. Well, that's fine as a beverage, you can't do a review like that, yada, 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 yada. I know a lot of people complain like that. This is so intense, so loud. Imagine going to a loud heavy metal concert in which your ears are bleeding because it's so loud. And you stick in earplugs, and then you take head mufflers, and you put them on your head to muffle the sound, and it's still really, 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 really loud music. That's what this whiskey is like. It's so big, so intense, so flavorsome, intensely flavored, that even put it on ice cubes, as it is, and watering back like this, it's still a very intensely flavored whiskey. So what do I get on it? Well, the aromas, yeah, the aromas are definitely, muted. Put it on ice. From a neck pour, you don't get a lot of aromas on it. It is very closed. And so you can let it open up and so forth, and you're going to get a lot of the sherry cask notes, the fig, dates, raisins, a lot of vanilla, caramels, a little bit of chocolate, very much a savory note, a barbecue rub, a moderate amount of smoke. The smoke is more of, you have your barbecue out in your backyard and the smoke's coming up through the grill. And so it's not a campfire, out in the forest, with a raging fire or anything like that. It's a grilled smoke coming off your meat as it sits on the grill. That's what the smoke is like. You get, I would say, almost like a heavily cooked brown sugar, dark caramels. There's a coffee note there. Also, a lot of leather, an old leather, not a new set of leather gloves, but an old sort of worn out leather coat. Now on the palate, and you get it to where you can actually drink it without it sort of taking your lower lip and pulling up over your head. We can actually approach it. It is an absolutely delicious whiskey. It is. It's a Erik, yeah, look what everything you've done to it. I know. It's still an absolutely delicious whiskey. So, get a lot of the barbecue notes, the savory notes, barbecue rub, a lot of spice, tons of spice. So, when I do a barbecue rub, I like brown sugar, kosher salt, and just about every herb and spice that I've got in my cabinet, black pepper. And I like to take a tri-tip and put it on the tri-tip and let it sit there like overnight, really, really sort of get in there, and then the next day it's ready for the barbecue. I get something like that. There's a coffee note. I would say a French roast dark coffee note. There is that leather note. If you were to either put on a black leather jacket and you can smell the leather jacket, or if you were to, for some strange reason, bite into an old black leather wallet, your hands are full, you're looking for your car keys, and you got your wallet in your hands, you take your wallet, you stick it in your mouth, and then you get out your car keys to unlock your car, and then you put your wallet back in your pocket or something, something, you know what I'm talking about? You can get that taste of leather. That's definitely in there. There is sort of I would say, a nuttiness that comes from the oxidization of the sherry cask. So it actually, even if it tasted neat, if you can hang in there and survive the intensity of the flavor, it starts off sweet, and on the back end, it'll actually go dry and get that nuttiness character, those oxidized notes from that dried sherry character. So, it's got everything that I like. Sweet, savory, salty, sherry, and smoky. Those are the 5 things I like. This is a great whiskey. It is not for the beginner. It is not for the newbie. It's not to be consumed or even, I would say, interpreted or understood neat. Either with a large dollop of water, or to really tame the sting and the bite of the aggressiveness of this whiskey, right? Try it with a couple ice cubes. I've tried it every way, and as a drink, this is how I'm going to enjoy it. I normally wouldn't review a whiskey like this, but it tastes absolutely delicious. What would I give it in terms of a score? That's the challenge. Because if I were to judge it as it is neat, I would be really, really challenged, because it's like, bro, dude, again, you got somebody who can bring it down to a palatable level, like that, so you can't judge it neat. With the water on it, and you give it 5-6 hours with some water on it, all right, you get it down. I would say it's really, really nice whiskey. I would say it's really fairly well balanced between the sweet and the savory. It's got a good development to it. The mouthfeel is still very, 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 very aggressive. The one thing I would say with it, it seems like to have some youth notes to it, but everything else, all the intensity of everything else is so distracting, so grabbing your attention that you can kind of forget about it. You don't really pay that much attention to it. Even with the ice, even with the temperature drop really, really low, I'm actually getting because the oils are all in there, because they didn't filter it, and it still has sort of a slightly sweet, syrupy, silky mouthfeel to it, and a really, really long finish. A really, really long finish. I mean, I could talk here probably the next 15 minutes, and I'm still tasting it, even though it's been watered back this much and the temperature dropped this much. So scoring is challenging because this is not my normal routine for scoring a whiskey. This is not normally how I would do it. If I had to give it a score and treat it as if it was and only as it neat, I would say it's, unless you're a sadomasochist, it's almost undrinkable. It's that intense. But being allowed to play with your whiskey and make your own adjustments, which is what a cask strength is all about. It's not really intended to be consumed neat, right? You're supposed to add water to it. You're supposed to find it and adjust it to the way you like it. Given that, I'd say it's an absolutely superb whiskey. I'm going to give it fairly high marks. I'm going to go 88 points. 88 points. Why not over 90? There's I would say an excessive woodiness. I feel like I'm taking the barrel, right, the whiskey barrel itself, and biting into the barrel, into a stave wood. I think that's because they're using seasoned casks, not casks that have actually spent a lot of time with sherry in it. Right? There's a difference between a seasoned cask and an actual sherry butt cask in which the sherry's had an extensive amount of time interacting with the wood. It's kind of very woody to it. And there's that slight youth note to it that is sort of, now, as I've been able to process it, sort of grabbing my attention to it. But it's still, I think, a very, 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 very nice whiskey. And if you can get one, I only paid $88 for it. If you can grab one, I highly, highly, highly recommend it, because, as I said before, this is really a bottle and a half of Scotch whiskey, and I really, really, really like it. Alrighty, there's a few of my other fellow whiskey tubers that have reviewed this. Jeremy over at Social Sipper Club, Rob over at Whiskey in the Six, both reviewed this. Trini and C also reviewed this, and I think they had maybe not as an emotionally intense reaction to it, but they had, I think, similar comments that I did on the whiskey. So you're going to want to check out their reviews and compare and say, you know what? Rob, Jeremy, Trini and C, and Erik are in the similar ballpark as their assessment of those whiskey. I'm going to say, if Highland Park, for some strange reason, you happen to be watching this, I'd like to see more of this. And I'd like to see more whiskeys. I'd like to see an age statement. It's a beautiful bottle there. But I'd like to see an age statement on this. And we'd like to see more whiskeys with age statements that are unchill filtered and no added coloring, and so on and so forth. So, all right. So this actually, I would say, a lot of the Highland Park whiskeys get a lot of silliness. They kind of overdo the whole Viking thing, And I've been to the distillery. Orkney is a beautiful place to visit. It's quite an adventure and a journey to get there. And it's a really, really cool tour of the distillery. But the Viking thing gets hyped just a little bit too much. But this is a no-joke, serious whiskey, serious distillery, putting out some really fantastic juice. Alrighty, if you like watching my reviews, I would ask that you subscribe and ring the bell to be notified when I go live. And if you are one of my Patreons, I want to thank you very much. And until next time, skål!